And once again, with Good Karma Wrestling, we are excited to welcome in today's guest to this edition of GKW. It is none other than Johnny Wrestling himself. It is Johnny Gargano. Johnny, welcome.
Hi.
To
How you guys doing?
GKW.
How you guys doing?
Awesome.
We're doing great, man. How are you?
great.
How's fatherhood treating you?
I'm living the dream, man. Living the dream. Every day is a new adventure. But like I'm so thankful that I get this opportunity to have this time and to be able to enjoy this first 5 months of being a dad.
Well, Johnny, one thing we do know is that your bundle of joy is a heel, and we can send it all to the wrestling sheets because your son is biting you on the nose. He knows how to break on 4 because he'll be disqualified on 5. We've already seen that biting you.
Yeah, he bites my nose on a frequent basis. It's probably my problem. I taught him that. I always reference it as the penguin in the Batman movie from when I was younger. But also, I would like to say he did claim another victim today as he bit Indy Hartwell's nose as well. So he's on a rampage. He's unstoppable.
I do have to imagine it must feel good, though, to be someone that's trending on social media what feels like every other week, and your body's not being put on the line that much outside of, baby interaction.
Yeah. I make the joke all the time that whenever anyone asks me, like, oh, what am I currently doing? What am I doing? And I say, I'm currently performing for Diaper Change Pro Wrestling. That's what I'm doing all the time. The majority of my days are spent changing diapers, and I wouldn't have it any other way right now. But yeah, I'm very thankful that people miss me and they want to see me again. It's a good problem to have.
Well, one of those was you got out in front of it before Forbidden Door because you happened to be in Chicago for something else the same day. Yeah. Were you getting a lot of inquiries about that, and that's why you felt like, okay, I actually have to get out in front of this?
I knew, and when I saw the date got announced, I was like, oh man, this is going to become a thing as soon as I saw that. And then it kind of just became, I'm a big believer in bits and just really just committing to the bit. And I love the fact that no matter what I was doing, no matter what I was saying, people were making up their mind on what I was doing next in my life. Even though I've been very adamant about how I'm going to enjoy fatherhood, I'm going to take a couple of months off, take as long off as I need to take off that I feel like I need to mentally and physically. But it became a really fun bit to where I was like, I'm just going to tell the absolute truth of everything I'm doing this weekend. I am flying in at this time. I'm going to be there for 8 hours. And then I'm going to take a picture on the airplane and say, I'm leaving now. I'm literally on the airplane flying home. Here is my flight information. I am going. And people were still like, no. See, he wouldn't say it if he wasn't going to show up. It's all a ruse. I'm like, it's not. I literally bought because I made a joke that I'm going to get a newspaper. And they still make those, believe it or not. I was going to get a newspaper. And I was going to post a picture of me with my kid with it. And I did buy a newspaper and MCO when I landed. But I was like, I'm done. I accomplished what I needed to.
Johnny, tell us about your experience with NXT. I think all the 3 of us, and the fans that are watching and listening really enjoyed your time at NXT. What was your experience like personally?
It was a dream come true, man. Like I was when I was younger, obviously my dream was to wrestle for WWE. A lot of us, that's our dream. We want to get to that stage. And to get a chance to go there and not only tell the stories I got a chance to tell with Tommaso and Adam Cole and Andrade, but have the matches I got a chance to have. And I mean, like for someone like me in my size, you don't look at me and I'm never the first pick overall. I'm never the guy you look at and you're like, I'm going to build my company around this guy. That's not me. But I do ultimately end up getting a foot in the door, and I kick that door down and I take that place over no matter where it is. And I got really, really lucky to be able to be in a locker room with some of the best talent in the world, some of the best coaches in the building, some of the best producers in the world, some of the best all-around people in the world. And it's a time that I'm going to remember with very fondly because, honestly, it was a time in my life.
You look back on that time, one of your first tag title shots against the Revival, now known as FTR. As a wrestling fan, what's it like watching those two and the run they're currently on as the best tag team in all of pro wrestling?
It's awesome to see, man. And it's something that I could have told you a long, long time ago. FTR, Revival, whatever you want to call them, they've been one of the best tag teams for a very, 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 very long time. And me and Tommaso were lucky enough to have that series with them where we did take over Brooklyn, then take over Toronto, and have those tag team matches with those two guys. because for my money, they are the best tag team in the world currently. And I said for a very, very long time, and I still do believe this, FTR and Young Bucks are just once in a generation tag teams. And we're very lucky to be living in a generation where we get to watch them perform.
We are talking with Johnny Gargano. You can check him out with StarCast 5 in Nashville, July 29th, 30th, 31st. What's next with Johnny Gargano will be on Sunday, 2:15 p.m. Central. All this information can be found at StarCast.com, and all of StarCast programming can be ordered on Fight TV. So going back, Johnny, to you were talking about, hey, you're not over that first pick overall. But who are some of the guys that you look to for inspiration? Who are the guys you looked up to when you were getting into this business?
Oh, I mean, obvious answer. And everyone, I think a lot of people from my generation have this answer. Shawn Michaels was a guy that I loved growing up. He was my hero growing up. And the opportunity that I not only got to work side by side with him, but form a friendship with him and a relationship that we still have to this day, where I can still text him and, we can chat here and there and see how each other are doing. I get a chance to meet, I brought Quill to meet Shawn, to meet his grandpa Shawn at the Performance Center a couple months back. And the fact
wait. Not Uncle Shawn, Grandpa Shawn?
Grandpa Shawn, yeah, because his grandpa, not my grandpa.
Yeah.
He's like my wrestling dad. So he's Quill's grandpa.
I see.
Yeah, not my grandpa. He's my wrestling dad. Then obviously Shawn and Hunter as well. Shawn and Hunter, for my money, are two of the absolute best minds in wrestling. And the fact that I got to work side by side with both of those guys and learn so much from both of those guys and still have a relationship with D-Generation X today is still amazing to me. They're they text me happy Father's Day. I'm very, very lucky to have that with those two guys because they're just genuinely great people as well. So Shawn, Hunter, Chris Jericho was a guy that I loved growing up a lot. He was my number 2, Kurt Angle. So a lot of guys that I rarely had I really enjoyed, as I can say, the work rate guys. If you can go in the ring, there's no wonder my style, but the smaller work rate guys always held a special place in my heart. So Shawn, Jericho, and Kurt were always 3 guys that I always liked a lot.
Johnny, on Wednesday nights, it was busy for wrestling fans to be watching AEW NXT and trying to figure out which show was best and what you DVR. How much was what AEW was doing affecting the NXT product from week to week?
It didn't affect any of us, honestly. We all just put our heads down and did our job. We have friends over there. I still have friends there. We had friends, especially at that time, on both sides. So it wasn't something we were they're doing this, we got to do that. It was just something hey, we're in a really cool time in professional wrestling where there's 2 shows on television. Let's try to make the best of this and put out the best wrestling show possible. And I think it's very lucky for wrestling fans that there was just good wrestling on TV, because for a long time, there was only 2 shows on, but now there's so many shows on and so many options. So we're literally living in a golden age where there's so much to pick from.
When you look back on that, how crazy is it for you being in the middle of it, seeing these programs build and seeing so many guys and girls that you worked with for so long?
It's awesome. It's one of my favorite things, the fact that a lot of these guys that I was in locker room with, I've known them for, I'm going to say 10 years at that point. We used to wrestle in VFW halls in front of 10 people, not even just in AEW, but NXT as well. Me and Adam Cole wrestled many times in front of 50 people at random indie shows. And now we're selling out and having one of the biggest gates, the biggest gate in NXT history at Barclays Center. Well over $1 million gate me and Adam Cole made at TakeOver New York. And literally 8 years earlier, we were wrestling in front of 50 people in middle of nowhere in California. So it's really cool to be in a locker room with those guys and look around and be man, I can't believe this all happened. I can't believe we made this possible, but it's the coolest thing.
So when you look at the new direction of NXT, as a wrestling fan, what do you feel about it? Because obviously, you just mentioned so many wrestling fans love that time, the black and gold of NXT, and now they've gone to NXT 2.0. So when you look at that, how do you compare and contrast the two?
I don't think you can compare them. Honestly, I think it's a completely different product. They're doing something completely new, something completely different than what the black and gold era was. Which I mean, I totally understand it. They went to more of a strictly developmental program, which I totally get. They're building people for the future, and they have a lot of great gems there, and a lot of people that should turn out and hopefully become superstars one day. Like I've been very on record of saying guys like Braun Breaker, Cora Jade, Roxanne as well. Like a lot of those guys on that show, like Cora Jade and Roxanne in general, have a special place in my heart because they're kind of just like me. They were fans growing up that dreamed of wrestling for WWE, dreamed of doing this, and now those two girls are getting their opportunity to go out there and live their dream and show their passion to the world and make things happen. So I'm super happy to see those two get an opportunity. Obviously, Indy Hartwell's still there. She's my daughter, and I think the world of her. I think she is a superstar in every sense of the word. I think she just needs an opportunity, and she's going to shock the world. As much, I mean, like I said, like she's someone that you turn the light on, and she will be entertaining. She is not just entertaining in the ring, but as we've seen with the wedding and things like that. I think Indy is such an untapped diamond that they haven't tapped into yet. But then I said like Braun Breaker, I think he is a stud as well, but everyone knows that. So I still watch the product. Like I still watch everything. I'm a wrestling fan, so I just enjoy things as they come.
Johnny, one of the reasons why I was so attracted to the NXT product when you were a part of it is because it was heavy on the wrestling and light on the entertainment. You talk about work rate. It was just something that was just different for the business, especially under the WWE banner. Could you tell us, you mentioned Triple H. I would really like for you to dig in a little bit more and tell us about working with Triple H and what that was like, because I think a lot of us wrestling fans just gave Triple H the benefit of the doubt and said, boy, he wants to do something completely different with the business.
Yeah, I mean Triple H, he's a wrestler, like, I guess as simple as I can put it. He's a wrestler, so he enjoys the things that he enjoys, and he loves great matches. And we were very lucky I was very lucky, I should say, that I was able to be given that opportunity to go out there with, say, an Andrade and have like a 30-minute barn burner match. I think at the time, me and Andrade at Taylor, Philadelphia, when we did it, was like the longest match on pay-per-view in years, and people were floored by that. But like I said, that doesn't happen without Triple H. Triple H is such a visionary, and he's someone that you don't really appreciate his genius until you're working side by side with him, especially if you're a wrestler. You don't appreciate someone's mind until you're right there next to him, and they take your idea and they make it bigger and they make it better, and you kind of see how their thought process works. That's something I have to experience many, many times with Hunter. And a lot too, like I know like him and Sean get a lot of flack for stuff they did in the past, but I can tell you like Hunter and Sean don't realize they're Hunter and Sean. And a lot of times I have to keep telling them, like, man, do you guys realize you're Triple H and Shawn Michaels? Because you should, because you absolutely are legends, but they treat you like just normal people. They treat you like you're an equal. And like I said, that's the best thing I can say about NXT at the time as well. And the black and gold brand is we really were like a family of just people going out there that love wrestling and making the best of what we got.
You talk about that work rate. How fulfilling is it, and almost where you step back and pat yourself on the back, that your kitchen table, yourself, your wife, Candice LeRae, you guys are such a hot commodity in wrestling, and everyone wants to see you back in the ring. Anytime there's any sort of mystery, you guys are a part of it. How fulfilling is that for you guys?
It's cool, and I always enjoyed wrestling. I'm very on record. I'm a wrestling fan. I enjoyed wrestling a lot during the Attitude Era as well, when I guess the internet wasn't as wise and there was a lot of uncertainty. You never knew who was showing up where and when and what was going to happen. So anything I can do to try to bring a little bit of that uncertainty to the table and hopefully bring about a cool surprise for people one day, I'm going to try to protect that as much as I can. But again, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for wrestling fans. I wouldn't be like, and it's scary. You got to think about it too. It's a scary thought process of like, I have this guaranteed contract with WWE I could take for a lot of money, and I can come back and I could keep doing what I'm doing. But I just knew that with the baby on the way, I didn't want to have anyone else be in control of my time, because I'm really only gonna get one shot at this. Me and Candice only plan on having one kid. So I want to be there and try to experience everything I can with Quill for his first year before I do anything else. Because I think I would regret if I missed his first words, or if I missed his first steps, if I was out wrestling out of a town somewhere. So I'm very lucky that fans do want to see me, and it is scary to step away because you think you're going to be forgotten. So it is a nice reminder sometimes every time I trend on Twitter or my name pops up that I haven't been forgotten yet.
Well, I'm sure you're going to address more of that. Again, what's next is going to be with Johnny Gargano is going to be a part of StarCast 5 in Nashville. So I'm not going to ask you what's next, but I'm going to ask you, what are some dream matches that you still have left, opponents that you want to face?
Okay, so are we talking people that I've never wrestled before?
Yes.
Okay, obviously. So I wrestled a lot of guys. I have a list of guys that I wrestled on the indies that I haven't wrestled yet on a big stage. So I'll get through that list first. Obviously, there's the Bryan Danielson, there's the AJ Styles, there's the Seth Rollins. I've wrestled those guys on smaller indies, but I never wrestled them on a bigger stage. And then when you talk about guys that I haven't had the chance to get in the ring with, one name in particular sticks out in my head, and it's an obvious one. It's me and Kenny Omega. I've never wrestled Kenny Omega, and I especially remember when I wrestled in 2018 when I went on that crazy takeover run. That run would always be like Johnny's on a different level, him and Kenny, and they always say like Johnny and Kenny, and I always wondered what would happen if me and him got in the ring together. So Kenny Omega is definitely a dream match of mine. But also you look at other guys on the other side, like Edge. I've never wrestled Edge. I've never wrestled Randy Orton. Guys that I grew up watching that I'd love to get a chance to get in the ring with, but also like CM Punk. Like there's like benefits both places. So that's kind of where my dilemma in my head's at right now. Is there's matches in both places, which is a good thing to have. But there's a lot of guys that also that maybe aren't dream matches necessarily in the big match sense, but also like guys that I watched. And I'm like, that could be a fun match one day. So I think wrestling is incredibly lucky that there's so much talent right now. There's a lot of different places that I can go and a lot of different opponents I still have left to get in the ring with. And it's I'm very lucky too that I'm only 34. Someone once told me, or I've heard many times, wrestlers enter their prime from 35 to 42. So I could potentially be entering my prime right now. I'll tell you when I come back, but we'll see what happens.
Well, there's always dream matches, but there's always more to do in the business too, Johnny. Is there something in wrestling that you haven't accomplished that you'd like to before you're completely done?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is I never got a chance to wrestle WrestleMania. That was always something on my bucket list, and it still is on my bucket list. Still something in the back of my mind that I haven't done yet. So getting a chance to wrestle at a WrestleMania is something I want to accomplish. But also, any of those titles over there, I know it's a usual answer for a lot of guys my size and from my era, but the Intercontinental title, especially like the white strap Intercontinental title that I used to love, that is always something that has been in the back of my mind as well that I love to have one day. But like I said, I'm far from done and I got a lot of time left.
When you look at that sort of transition of those companies, how does something like a Cody Rhodes going back to WWE, how does something like that, affect you personally?
I don't know if it affects me. Like, it's nice to see that guys, and I think that is the natural progression of all this stuff is, guys can hop from company to company. And I think that is necessary. I think and I always say wrestling is kind of like a TV show. If you watch the same TV show every single week and the same characters doing the same thing in the same place for very, very long, you kind of get stale, you get stagnant and like that. So like the old territory days, I think it's time after a while for someone to maybe hop to a different territory. There's fresh matchups, a fresh coat of paint. And that was obviously in my head too when my contract was coming up with NXT, and WWE in general was where I wanted to kind of have a refresh. And I felt like people, knock on wood, I've been very, very lucky to where I haven't had any major injuries. So I've been on television in some way, shape, or form for about 5 or 6 years, uninterrupted. So I felt like it was a good time to kind of step away, refresh, and let people miss you for a little bit. Because if people don't have a chance to miss you, they won't miss you. So it is a gamble, but it's something that I'm thankful I did.
So then also, because for the sake of doing something different, we just saw Forbidden Door with AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. We debated on this show. The show was great, and we knew the show was going to be great, but was it worth AEW kind of pausing some of the things they were doing to try to build some of those matches? So as a wrestling fan, what did you think of the build-up, and what did you think of Forbidden Door?
So I enjoyed it. Like I said, I enjoyed any of the cross promotional things. I think it's a fun show to do, especially when you have the opportunity to do it. Like I said, like any of those dream matches, you would be. If you get a chance to do a AEW and New Japan show, you do it. You know, it's not like they should put things on hold, but like if that opportunity arises, you need to do it because there's so many potential dream matches, and the working relationship they have is great. So I enjoyed it. I enjoy it as a wrestling fan. Like I said, I watch everything though, so I don't view things through like why did they do this or what they should have done this or they did this. I just try to enjoy everything. I think you enjoy life a lot more when you kind of just sit back and take things as they come.
Can you believe that the divorce between Baker Mayfield and the Browns is over? Can you believe that?
So, like I said, I'm a very notable Browns fan, and I love Baker. Any interaction I've had with Baker, Baker's been the man. He's been super cool to me, super cool to Candace. But I do understand where the Browns are going. We'll see how things end up there. I'll always be a Browns fan, but I don't want to say I wish Baker well in his future endeavors because I'm not going to say that. I do wish Baker well wherever he ends up. I hope he goes to a Super Bowl. I hope he wins the Super Bowl. I hope he proves a lot of people wrong because he's always been a top-notch dude to me.
Outside of wrestling, anyone who follows you on Twitter at Johnny Gargano, you're a big collector. We see it behind you. What's that one sort of nice possession that's sort of the top of your list where you say, wow, I actually do have this in my possession?
So I'm really into graded comic books, which is kind of a nerdy thing to have. But I have an issue of Spider-Man 300 graded like a 9.4 in my collection, which is like my grail comic book item right now. I'm a big Black Suit Spider-Man fan. And my other new thing I'm on is like graded Pokemon cards, which is a different rabbit hole. But like I said, any nerdy thing, as you can see with everything around me, I'm all about.
So when it comes to comic books, and so and maybe you can make fun of me. I love the Marvel movies. I'm a big fan of the MCU. I watch all the stuff. Yeah. But because my wife loves Harry Potter, but won't watch certain Harry Potter movies because she's like, oh, the book is so totally different. It's so much better. So when you watch the MCU and being such a comic book fan, is there a disconnect there too?
Not for me at all. No, I realize it's a completely different thing. Like it's a different interpretation of something. Like I said, there's different interpretations of comic books forever. Like everyone has a different interpretation of a character. So the MCU is kind of its own thing. But I love the MCU. Like MCU is top notch to me. I'm going to see Thor: Love and Thunder tomorrow. So trust me, I'm all about the MCU. Me and Candace go. We try to go with the baby now. We go to every opening night of an MCU movie because for me that's as close to a wrestling fan feeling as I'm gonna get, being in like a packed theater with all these other nerds and people just nerding out for a show. Like I feel like that is the closest to a wrestling environment I'm gonna get because as a wrestler I can't disconnect myself from like that, but as an MCU fan I definitely can.
Harry Potter, who he ever beat?
Seriously. Johnny, we certainly appreciate the time. Again, really looking forward to seeing you again. StarCast 5's in Nashville, the 29th, 30th, 31st of July. What's next with Johnny Gargano is going to be Sunday, 2:15 p.m. Central. All that info can be found on StarCast.com, and all of StarCast programming can be ordered on Fight TV. Johnny, thank you so much for the time and joining GKW.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Johnny.
Again, awesome to get to talk with Johnny Wrestling. So many more things to talk about next week on that edition of Good Karma Wrestling.
What channel's Impact?